like spreads out. And it spreads out.
I'd be so mad if I had to.
It's pretty
Like, I don't
It's not I want him to would you talk about we were going on because like you know like the head from 87 right? Like and then like like on me something like that like the first two movies so I'm not thinking so like yeah if you want to that's what you said. T-shirt. I do it. No, I think it actually no. Okay, this is right. So because if it does, we're sitting anyway. On the left side. Yeah. Or like a great way. Yeah. Like percentage. Well, I guess I don't know. This one's broken. The spring. Actually, no, that was this morning. I was surprised. That one's a lot. I might make it a flow. I carried it around. I'll say, I forgot to vote. Oh, no, I didn't. Did I? I don't know. I was just like, found it, but yeah. I learned all the importance of it. No, RJ, I was actually saying how we do it. Yeah. Oh, it's okay, so. You look correct. I'm sitting behind you. I'm sure I know. Why did you be like my Venmo transaction today?
No, I thought it was my parents. Thank you so much, Bill. What a nice guy. Oh, I got it. Me and my friend Will. Yeah, there are. Several large boxes.
Okay, folks, I know there are donuts out there, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to go grab a donut if you want to. I know it's right at 7, but just everyone that's getting a donut, grab one, and then we'll, what's the word? Call to order.
Chloe back in the Senate. Why not? I'm not doing that. I can't believe you guys are so little of me. Rain is over here. It's not spring baby. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna try on this. And it's like, we have a girl like walking through my
I now call this meeting of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association Student Senate to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to begin our Student Senate meeting taking place on Thursday, September 15th, 2022, with a land acknowledgement. We recognize that Kansas State University, as the first land-grant institution, stands on the ancestral grounds of the Kaw people. Our state of Kansas is home to 4 federally recognized Native nations: the Iowa, Kickapoo, Prairie Band Potawatomi, and Sac and Fox. We must remember that the land serving as the foundation of this institution was and still is stolen land acquired by white settlers. We pledge our commitment to creating decolonized spaces at the university while advocating for the support and future success of Indigenous faculty, staff, and students at K-State. And with that, Speaker Pro Tem Pineda-Gomez will take it away with our first roll call.
Thanks so much, Evan, and good evening, everyone. Anderson.
Here.
Bannister.
Present.
Bellamy.
Here.
Blood.
Here.
Broughton.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Carey. Compton.
Here.
Coy.
Here.
Davidson.
Here.
DePaz.
Here.
Dole.
Here.
Grills. Heatherman. Hoffman.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Collery Kill.
Here.
Kamen.
Here.
Kirshen.
Here.
Kidd.
Here.
Kermer.
Here.
Labidi.
Here.
Long.
Here.
McFarland.
Here.
McPhee.
Here.
Midoff. Murphy.
Here.
Noretti. Navarro.
Here.
Oury.
Here.
Phillips.
Here.
Pilchard.
Here.
Pondillo.
Here.
Rogers.
Here.
Saya.
Here.
Solomon.
Here.
Shear.
Here.
Schreier.
Here.
Spindler.
Here.
Stout.
Here.
Strout.
Here.
Talbert.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
And Wolf.
Here.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, everybody. We actually have a couple first open period presentations tonight. Obviously, you grab your donuts from UPC, and they'll have a chance to speak here in a bit. But first, we have Bernard Franklin joining us. Bernard is joining us from, correct me if I'm wrong here, Bernard, Boston, Massachusetts, or Cambridge. Bernard was the first Black student body president here at Kansas State University, so please shut your laptops, turn off your phones, folks. I know the Chiefs are playing right now, but please just give Bernard your full undivided attention here for the next few minutes.
Well, good evening. I am in Boston, in Cambridge. I'm honored. I tell you, I'm really honored. Mr. Gomez sent me an email asking me to participate It's a thrill to have this opportunity. In fact, I wish I were there with you where we could have a one-on-one conversation. But I'm impressed with your opening reading about the land, very impressive. And I greet you on the first day of Hispanic Awareness Month. Just keeping in mind the great diversity that our country has to offer, a place where no matter your background, no matter where you come from, you have a unique opportunity to change your direction and change that of your family as well. Friends, what can I say to you that you don't already know? Kansas State University is a special place. It changed my life. And many of the things that I was involved in fact, I was involved in quite a few things, but I think student government was the landmark. Student government gave me the ability to interact with young men and young women from all parts of our state and from all over the country. We had a fantastic opportunity to really change things. We were a bit, the period where I was a student was during some of the student unrest period. I came a year after Nichols Gym burned and was connected to some of those students who were involved in some of the conversation and discussion about it. We began to talk about some of the things that we wanted to change and some of the things that we felt we needed on campus. And one of those was a student rec center. So my election as student body president was the vote that approved the fee to build the rec center. K-State was one of the first in the Big 12. Back then it was the Big 8 to have a student center. Student government leaders came from all over the country to see what we were about to build. We've always been a leader. We have always been a leader in student government in our state, even when the other institution in our state had issues. They would call me or call our student government to talk about what we were doing. I'm proud of what I hear you all are doing there, but I just say, make the best of it. Make K-State what it can be. I've been in higher ed for most of my adult life, and I'm not sure I've seen a more challenged period for higher ed, meaning tuition continues to increase, enrollments shaky all over the country. Programs are being discussed that might be eliminated, other programs might be added. This is the time for students to be front and center with the administration to talk about the future of higher education. What you decide now could impact your children. And I know sometimes you might think that's too far away, but it's not. You want to make sure that there's no decision that the new president decides that doesn't have student input. Now, I'm not saying that you all make the final decision, but I want to be clear. I want to be crystal clear. Student government should have a voice in every major decision that's about to come forward from K-State's new leadership this year. Let's see, I could talk about a number of other things, but I think I'll stop there and see if there's any questions, any comments, anything you all want just a few minutes on. Certainly don't want to take your time because I know you want to watch the Chiefs game, as I do.
Yeah, thanks so much, Bernard. Very, very wise words for us there, and we really appreciate your insights into that. But are there any questions for Bernard tonight? Chair Phillips.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Dr. Franklin.
My pleasure.
I know one crazy thing about you winning student body president was that you won by a write-in vote. Can you tell us a little bit about that and ways that you found to get your message out to students?
Well, that's a great question, and I'll do my best to be as brief as possible. I had a unique opportunity, and part of that opportunity, we had worked so hard on the rec complex, and we needed it to win. and we needed to make sure we had the votes to push us forward. And so there was some early speculation that we might not have the vote. And so I stepped into it, even opposing some of my dear, dear, dear friends. But I was bound that all the work we have put in place to get a rec complex would not be lost. And so stepping into it as a write-in, the elections committee decided that since I came, I think it was 5 or 10 minutes after the election registration deadline, that I needed to be a write-in candidate. What it proved to be, though, was an opportunity for me to work my butt off. I went to every fraternity, every sorority, every floor, residence hall floor. We put up banners, signs, buttons. We plastered. This was before you all had rules about sheets and posters. We literally put things on trees and everywhere we could to write in Bernard Franklin, because we felt if we had a win, not only did I win student body president, but we would win the rec vote. And that's exactly what happened. So I had 55% of the vote, meaning I had more votes than all 5 other candidates that were on the ballot. Student government made it really hard. Students had to spell my name correctly. It couldn't be Barnard or Barnyard, as some of my friends teasingly called me. It had to be spelled perfect. And so 55% of those students came out and voted. We passed it. In a lot of ways, being first African American student body president was thrilling. I will admit that. But what's more important is when I walked through the rec complex, because I was part of the dedication of that building, that's more of an accomplishment to me than being elected student body president, is I know there's a legacy left behind that my grandkids will enjoy for years to come.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Caucus Leader Bellamy.
Yeah, so you mentioned that when you had first gone to college was a very turbulent time on college campuses, and you said
Right.
that it is now too. Do you have any advice from one turbulent SGA to another?
Yeah, don't shrink back. Do not. But I don't want you to do the things we did. We were long hair, and I know you can't tell. I had a kicking afro, bra. I mean, my afro was on my shoulders. I was a bit of a rebel. I was a loudmouth. In fact, we wanted a faculty handbook that faculty could be reviewed and students could have the opportunity to see who was a good teacher, who was mediocre. And the vice president, the provost, said, no, we couldn't have it. Well, back then, you didn't tell me no. So I walked over to Anderson Hall. I knew the vice president was in. The secretary said he wasn't. I went in his office, climbed on top of his mahogany desk, and cussed him out one side down the other. Now, I do not. If any of you do it, I'm coming after you. I do not recommend that strategy today. What I do recommend is you do your homework. You be as smart as the vice presidents. You be as smart as the presidents. You know your data. You know what's coming. You try to anticipate. I don't think students do enough of a good job of asking the students to help. I think you can have better surveys. With technology now, it should not be a difficult challenge for you to find out where students are about tuition increase. What do students feel about an increase in housing fees? What do students think about eliminating a program? You ought to be able to develop a system where you can have answers to some of those hard questions coming in a day or two. It shouldn't take a technology-driven campus. It shouldn't take you long to have answers that you can share with the president and the vice president about what's coming. And I mean that there's not a decision that comes to the president that student government says we have an opinion about that. I feel strong about that. Strong about that.
Yeah, President Vogelmore.
Hey, Dr. Franklin. You've been obviously you were very involved in student government in Kansas State, and then in a number of other institutions, and now back in higher education at Harvard. You talked a lot about the opportunity and the voice and the importance of that voice as students at Kansas State. Could you talk a little bit more about why that opportunity is maybe unique at Kansas State, and just your history of being involved at Kansas State over a number of years? How just important and how uniquely important student voice is at a student-centered university like K-State?
Well, you probably know too that I was on the Kansas Board of Regents.
Yep.
I was appointed to the Kansas Board of Regents the year after I was senior and student body president. We had petitioned the governor that a student member should be on the board. And the governor said no, but I'll compromise and I'll appoint a recent college graduate. I was the college graduate that was appointed. 4 years later, or 3 years later, I was chair of the board at 24. What I simply want you to understand is there's no age limit to your ability to be in a room with adults and determine the future of Kansas higher education system. One of the things we said years ago was that Kansas has too many 4-year and 2-year institutions. At some point, Kansas governors or Kansas voters are going to eliminate the 1 or 2 of the 2-year colleges that are around the country, or there's going to be some consolidations. I would say it is critically important that Kansas State University remain as Kansas's primary land grant institution. There are too many programs that the other institution down the river just doesn't offer that are just vital for our state. K-State has to be strong. It has to be vital. It has to provide the new biotech. We have to be strong in architecture and engineering and all those areas. So I just say to you all, think about the next 5, 10, 15 years. Where do you want Kansas State to sit? How premier do you want it to be? And work your butt off to make sure that you have the data that you can convince the new president that this is the road to move on. I have been a vice president. I have been a president. What I have always enjoyed was having rigorous conversations with my student leaders. And I say, guys, there's just no limit. There's no limit at all about what you can discuss, what you can talk about. There's lots of changes going on in athletics. There's lots of changes going on all over the campus community. So just be involved in it. I hope that's clear. Again, I really wish I were there with you all, because, you know, if we had a chance to eyeball each other, we could sit down and really talk about it. But I hope you hear, I have great passion. Great passion. We changed K-State when I was there. We did a lot to improve it. And I think there's still some areas that you all can be involved in.
Are there any further questions? Yeah, Speaker Pro Tem Pineda Gomez.
Hi, Bernard. Thanks for joining us once again.
It's your invitation, man. I appreciate you reaching out.
Well, I had a question for you. So looking back on your time as a student here at Kansas State, and realizing where you are now, what is something that you wish you'd have known while you were still in our shoes?
Wow, that's a great question. Again, man, I wish I were there. Something I know now that I wish I knew at your age? Is that sort
Yep.
of the question?
Yep, that's exactly right.
You know, I think we knew, Mr. Gomez, I think we knew tuition was going to continue to increase. I just don't think we knew to the degree that it has. And I don't think we knew or we anticipated to the degree that students would be in debt. I promise you, if we had a crystal ball and we could have figured that out, I'd have protested. I'd have done whatever I could to help tuition remain the same and to prevent students from having to have debt. I would have done anything. That's a regret that I have today, is that I didn't fight hard enough when I was a student, and I didn't see that coming. That there are too many students, and it's not a color or a race issue. I know students from rural areas that are struggling. That's a concern of mine, that the cost of higher education in America is going to get to a point that only the wealthy can afford it. We see it coming, but I'm not sure we're doing enough to stop it.
Yeah, intern coordinator Lynn.
Hi, thanks for coming. I know you have worked at a variety of institutions over the years, and I was wondering if there's anything that you have learned throughout your experience with those institutions that you would suggest, or things that would be applicable to come back to K-State.
To come back to K-State?
Like, is there anything you've learned at other institutions that you think that, K-State could be doing better, or that, we should pursue?
Yeah, that's another good question. I probably would soften the lines between majors and programs. I think we focus too much on 4 years in one particular area. When students really need to have background. One of the things, again, is so much. I was with Dr. Bosco and others when we first began to think about leadership studies. And that was one of the concepts that we were looking at. The College of Business wanted leadership studies, and we said, nah, because that would mean only business students would have it. Then another arts and sciences, I think, wanted. We said, nah, that would mean. And then, so it landed at the College of Education, and then the College of Education spun it off. I think too many students graduate with myopic viewpoints about their particular area, and the world cannot have leaders who have one perspective or one narrow view only from their major. So what I would want to do would be to soften those areas to give you more freedom, so that you could take more courses across lines, across majors, across areas. I would probably encourage more. I just got back from 2 weeks in Spain, Portugal, and Northern Africa, Morocco. I wish I'd had more opportunities to do that kind of travel when I was a student, like give you a semester where you could choose not necessarily an academic program, but give you an opportunity to just go see the world. How is the rest of the world integrating technology? How is the rest of the world dealing with climate change? How's the rest of the world dealing with any of these issues? That would be so important, I think, for students today, because the world is much smaller. So I would work at opening up majors, softening those lines, and then trying to figure out how I give you an opportunity to go. Do you know less than half of our people in America have a passport and a visa? Meaning a lot of our adults have never been overseas. Never. I would like to just open that up so students as undergraduates could just really go see the world.
Are there any further questions? Okay, awesome. Seeing none, if you all want to give Dr. Franklin a big round of applause.
Go State. I wish I were there Saturday.
Okay, thanks so much, Dr. Franklin. Unless you have anything else to add, have a great night.
I'm good. I've taken too much of your time as it is.
Not
If
at all.
I'm ever
We
back
appreciate
in the
it.
city, I would love to come visit.
Absolutely. We would really love that. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Okay, awesome. Thanks, everybody. Now we are going to have a couple representatives from UPC come chat with us.
So fancy, I have a podium now. So, hi everybody, I'm the president of UPC. My name is Codis. My job as president, I oversee co-chair operations. And what UPC is, we are responsible for like 71% of the events that happen on campus. Huge percentage. We do events for students, by students. Everything's free for students. And we're funded through student fees. Some of the goals we have for UPC coming up, we're going to revise the constitution for the program. It's a little outdated, and COVID kind of shot a little bit of that down. We're going to streamline the event planning process for committee members. We have 6 different committees. Starting off, we have after hours. They plan events every Friday night. Then we have arts. They're responsible for creating events centered around the different medias within the art community. And they're also responsible for keeping the exhibit in the Kemper Art Gallery. Then we have CEF. They're in charge of one huge event. They do it in the springtime. What I mean by that, we had Kevin Hart a couple years ago, and we're trying to bring that back, that kind of level. Then we have community. Their job is to break the barrier between K-State and the city of Manhattan. They're doing a really good job of that. We're going to bring the farmers market up to the Union. I think that's on the 23rd. And then next Tuesday, we'll have a voters registration event. Then we have multicultural. They are responsible for hitting every niche within the student community in order to expand and unite the K-State community. Lastly, we have music. Music is a part of every culture, and yeah, we just try to enhance the student experience through music. So I'm gonna hand it off to Peyton, the executive, or the vice president of operations.
Hello, I'm Peyton. I'm the vice president of membership. So my role is coordinating applications and all the co-chairs who are interested in joining UPC. So a little bit about how to join UPC. We currently have co-chair applications open, which means you get to be on one of the event planning committees and get involved in planning events. So it's open to any student if you're interested in event planning, getting more involved on campus, or getting a say in what happens on campus, because the events are whatever the co-chairs want. So whatever you dream of, we can make it happen. But if you're not interested in becoming a co-chair, we also always have open co-sponsorships, which means the different committees in UPC work with different student organizations and groups on campus. So if you're a part of a different organization or group, or you know of different organizations or group, we always welcome you to reach out to us. That's our email and CODIS's email. We help different groups plan events, use our resources, use our experiences, help man events, different things like that. And then our next all meeting, which is open to everyone who's interested, just dropping by, want to come learn more, will be not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, the 27th, 5:30 to 6:30 on Bosco Student Plaza. There's always food, there's music, just come chat, hang out, see what events are coming up, things like that. So if you're interested, come drop by not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, the 27th. Or our office is downstairs on the ground floor next to the marketing office. There's always, our advisors are in there, and there's usually 1 or 2 members always hanging out in the office. So yeah.
Do we have any questions?
Any questions for UPC? Okay, that was very informative. Thank you so much, and thanks for the donuts. We really appreciate it. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Unless there are any other first open period speakers hanging around out there, we'll go ahead and move into approval of the minutes. The minutes were distributed on Tuesday along with the agenda and legislation tracking information. Are there any questions or corrections for the minutes? Okay, awesome. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes? Senator Solomon.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Are there any objections? Okay, seeing none, the minutes will stand approved. And with that, we will go ahead and move right into announcements. Not very many announcements this week, but Starting off, the Student Body President's Cabinet wants to hear from you. Our student senators are the cabinet is looking to get paired up with our student senators. So if there is an issue area that you are particularly passionate about, you can click that link there. It's linked on the agenda and fill out that Google form. And Chief of Staff Richenberg will get you in touch with the cabinet director that most closely fits with the thing that you're interested in making some progress on here on campus. Next, the Kansas State University Blood Drive is taking place in 2 weeks from September 26th to the 29th. If you are able to donate, I know they're always, the Red Cross is always in high need. I feel like I'm always hearing that they're in an emergency blood shortage. So if you're able to donate and you have time, you can come out to the Union on any one of those days and donate. And then National Voter Registration Day is happening this Tuesday, September 20th. I know that CODIS mentioned that they're going to have a big registration event, but if you aren't registered, please consider doing so. If you want to get registered in the state of Kansas to vote in the general election in November, your last date to do that is October 19th. And then next, there's the link to the proxy form. If you're going to be absent from Student Senate and want someone to fill in as your proxy, you can fill out that proxy form. And proxies for this week, we have Davidson for Volgamore, Dole for Pelton, Kamen for Barron, and Shear for Grolmes. And with that, the only other announcements are the ones that are always on there. So if you're going to be physically absent but can still attend Zoom, you can fill out that Zoom request form. If you want to give props to anyone in Student Senate, you can fill out the Student Senate shout-out form. And the member of the week this week is Jeremy Kamen. Jeremy has put a lot of work already into his role on the JCOT committee. He's been a very active member of TEC, the Tuition Enhancements Committee, and Jeremy just has a ton of enthusiasm for everything that we do within SGA. So thank you, Jeremy, for all your hard work and enthusiasm. And I did want to mention one thing. I have forgotten to mention this at the last few meetings, but we have pins. I know most of you already have a pin, but if you look around, there's a couple people in the room that are wearing these cool little enamel pins. I didn't wear a jacket today, so I didn't have one pinned to my lapel, but they're just these little enamel lapel pins. They have the SGA logo on them. If you want one, come see me. They're $3. I take cash or Venmo, no checks. And then, last thing, there's the upcoming events calendar. There's nothing different really from any other week, so that's just all the events we'll have happening next week. And the quote of the week this week is, "The point is not to pay back kindness, but to pass it on," and that is Julia Alvarez. And with that, we will go ahead and move straight into our approval of appointments this week. And we only have one thing up for approval of appointments. It's Resolution 22, 23, 24. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 24? Chair Long.
I move to consider Resolution 24. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 24. I will come forward.
I'm not going to make that.
Okay, this is Resolution 22, 23, 24, the coolest bill number or resolution number of the year. Approval of Joint Committee on Officers' Compensation. Authors Kathleen Cowell, Evan Porter, and Parker Volgamore, and sponsors are the Senate Executive Committee. Whereas the Joint Committee on Officers' Compensation is responsible for studying, analyzing, and recommending levels of compensation for student officers of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association. Whereas the KSU SGA bylaws specify that the Student Body President, Speaker of the Student Senate, and Attorney General each appoint one member of the committee. Whereas Student Body President Parker Volgamore has appointed Megan Splekel, Speaker of the Student Senate Evan Porter has appointed Drew Bellamy, and Attorney General Kathleen Cowell has appointed Darby Leach. Whereas Student Senate shall elect 2 student senators to be voting members on the committee. Whereas Student Senate has elected Will Bannister and Jeremy Kamen, and whereas these appointments are subject to the approval by Student Senate. That should say of. Be it resolved that Section 1, the following individuals be approved as members of the Joint Committee on Officers' Compensation: Drew Bellamy, Darby Leach, Megan Splekel.
Are there any questions or corrections for the speaker? Is there a motion? Chair Phillips.
I move to approve Resolution 24 unanimously.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 24 unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 24 will stand approved. And no swearings in for that. It's just a committee. So we will just go ahead and move straight on from approval of appointments into our committee reports. Are there any committee chairs that would like to give a report tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into directors' reports. Are there any directors that would like to give a report tonight? Director Larson.
All right, I just want to make a quick announcement.
Go to the podium.
I've never done this before, I apologize.
Doing great.
All right, right, I want to make an announcement. PowerCat Financial, as well as K-State, has been working on an initiative for financial literacy across campus, and they've set up a 0 credit hour class. It's called PFP 300. It's Problems in Personal Financial Planning, and it goes over money tracking, overcoming behavioral obstacles of managing your finances, understanding credit, and the foundations of investing. And this is offered in either a 3-week in-person class or a 5-week asynchronous class. And there's 4 course options. You can find those through the K-State registration links and things of that nature. Just wanted to make an announcement to SGA, and if you could get that out to any students that you think might be interested or anybody that might be interested, that'd be great. So that's all I have.
Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, you may take your seat. Are there any further directors that would like to give a report tonight? Director James Rose.
All right, I'll keep this really short. So you've heard about, from the UPC briefly, about September 20th is National Voter Registration Day. They're actually holding an event tabling outside the union, and they asked for SGA's help. So I met with Caitlin McCourt, and she essentially told me that she would love for it to be an opportunity to market the intern program for Senate. I thought that would be something that you guys would love to be interested in. So Marta's going to connect with you after this, and you're going to get that going, I think. So it's going to be great. Should be a wonderful event. They're going to have 3 tables out there helping people get registered to vote. Technically not helping, it's illegal, so they're just going to kind of have QR codes and have them like register on their own. But yeah, so that's going on September 20th, and if you are by the union and you want to stop by and help, it is from 10 to 2, so 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Just another brief thing that you'll be hearing more about as time passes. October 9th, the League of Women's Voters, along with SGA, it's kind of in the works right now, but we'll be hosting a candidate forum actually here in Wildcat Chamber. This will be open to essentially anyone to come and listen to the candidates of the 5 districts around the Flint Hills. That's what Dr. Colleen Lind, who's head of the ICDD, has told me. So it should be a great event as well. We're just working to essentially get all the groups on campus that are trying to promote the civic duties of the students together so that it's kind of a collective body rather than a lot of different organizations trying to do the same thing but on their own without the help of each other. So that's what we're doing. If you have any questions for me, fire it at me now. If you think of it later, my information, also you can feel free to email me or give me a call or text, and I'm more than happy to help in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, thank you guys.
Are there any questions? Awesome. Seeing none, you may take your seat. President Vogelmore.
Hey all, just real quick, wanted to mention a couple of things. So we were at the Kansas Board of Regents meeting yesterday, so I have a couple quick updates from that. Overall, not a ton, but there was a big kind of announcement that was made that doesn't necessarily relate to K-State, but in case you hear about it in the news or something, I wanted to just make sure you were aware. So Emporia State submitted a proposal to the Board of Regents essentially to take advantage of a regent policy. It was a workforce management policy. Emporia State submitted their, the Board of Regents yesterday at their meeting unanimously endorsed this request from Emporia State. Essentially, this workforce management proposal, it was a policy that was set to expire this December 31st of this year, and it was intended to address financial hardship and enrollment trends by granting regent institutions the ability to expedite dismissal of tenured faculty and other employees, among other liberties. Essentially, that means the Board of Regents opened up this policy and this opportunity that if institutions wanted to exercise this privilege, they could get it approved and they could fire tenured professors and employees. The idea was so that you can strategically adjust and modernize your curriculum. So if you need to get rid of an academic program, or it's just to address some of that financial hardship through COVID. However, Provost Tabor and President Linton have said that K-State will not pursue a policy like this under any circumstance at the time. So it's not necessarily something to worry about here, but it is something to be aware of because it was a big deal in the news. And obviously the faculty senate and students at Emporia State were pretty upset and frustrated. And there was a lot of discussion about that. So you may hear about it, students may ask. So that's just some information on where that's coming from. That was pretty quick and vague. So sorry, but I don't want to take too much of your time. Does anybody have any questions about that in particular?
Yeah, Senator Ari.
Yep.
Are there any incidences with like the professors themselves of why they would want to be able to get rid of a tenure?
So they didn't, by the end of this week, I guess, is when they said they would be notifying employees and faculty of like what their strategic plan was as far as firing people. They did say it was strategic and it was going to be sort of consolidating and reorganizing their workforce. I get it. My explanation is vague, but that's what theirs was too. I think it was probably going to be more like they're going to get rid of this academic program so that they can focus on this program instead, all of that sort of thing. But yeah, that is a little bit TBD, and I don't know that they've made announcements on like what initial employees would be affected by this policy. But again, yeah, not a policy that K-State will be exercising. So that's the important thing to know.
Are there any further questions about that? Did you have anything else to add, Parker?
Okay, not at this time, I don't think. There will be a few other updates. I might have said this already, but the Board of Regents will be here in November, so that'll be a really fun opportunity for us to be involved and engaged with them. But otherwise, I think that's all we have. Thanks.
Okay, are there any further directors that would like to give a report tonight? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move straight into introduction of allocations. Is there a motion to consider the allocations? Senator Solomon.
I would consider allocations. Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to consider the allocations. We have quite a few this week. So first we have Bill 16. This is the fiscal year 22 student allocation to the AISX structural steel bridge. They requested $4,200 and they were recommended $3,100. Next we have Bill 17, the fiscal year 2023 student allocation to the baseball club. They requested $3,000 and they were recommended $3,000. Next we have Bill 18, the fiscal year 2023 student allocation to the concrete canoe team. They requested $6,200 and they were recommended $1,600. Next we have Bill 19, the fiscal year 2023 student allocation to Kappa Kappa Psi Tau Beta Sigma. They requested $3,950. They were recommended $350. And next we have Bill 20, fiscal year 2023 student allocation to the Phi Eta Sigma Freshman Honor Society. They requested $2,190. They were recommended $200. And last but not least, we have the fiscal year 2023 student allocation to the Water Environment Federation. They requested $800 and they were recommended $800. I actually had a correction that I wanted to announce also. On Bill 19, line 37, it should say Kappa Kappa Psi, not just Kappa Psi. We missed a Kappa. But yeah, unless there are any questions about the allocations, we will go ahead and move into introduction of legislation. And is there a motion
Mr.
to
Speaker,
Oh,
I have a number of questions on the allocations.
Bryce, can you make sure that you tell me if people have questions on Zoom? Okay. Thank you. Brian, go ahead.
Yes. The first one would be on allocation, Bill 16. It appears, according to the statutes there, that this is supposed to be submitted prior to travel and not as reimbursement, unless there was an exception made by the chair. Was there an exception made?
Jacob, did you make an exception?
This was submitted prior to travel. They submitted this back in spring before the end of the semester. It was after the committee stopped meeting for that year, so all of the funding to DSO is through reimbursement. That's what that line means. The committee had already stopped meeting, so they submitted an application, traveled, and the committee considered the application after we started meeting in this semester.
Did that answer your question, Brian?
Yes.
Did you have other questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
On Bill 17, why was club baseball not given a sports club line item allocation for the current fiscal year?
This is not a sports club allocation. Since they did not receive sports club line item money last year, they are eligible for standard contingency reserve fund from the SAC committee.
Did that answer your question, Brian?
Yes.
Do you have any other questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
On Bill 18, it says that the total cost was $9,500 and they received $8,000, yet we are allocating $1,600. Why are we allocating an additional $100 than what their cost was?
Approximately $9,500. There were plus or minus expenses if anyone to cover.
Did that answer your question, Brian?
No. So we don't know how much it cost, and we're allocating more money than what we know?
They gave us a number that was $9,583, I believe, but they said that there could be a couple plus or minuses, so the committee chose to allocate $1,600 to cover any of those possibilities. The fact that it was so much less than what they requested, we did not feel that was an issue.
Did that answer your question, Brian?
Yes.
Do you have any other questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
On Bill 19, why was the fee for the lecturer not recommended?
That lecturer will be lecturing in classes, and there is a statute that precludes us from funding lectures that are going to lecture in degree-specific classes.
Did that answer your question, Brian?
It did.
Do you have any more questions?
Yes, one more. How many people are attending the WEF Tech convention?
8. Is that not specified in the bill?
Yeah, it is specified, right?
Okay.
Do you have any other questions,
Those
Brian?
are all my questions.
Thank you,
That would be
Brian.
all.
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and move into introduction of legislation. I'm going to preface this. I accidentally put 2 copies of Resolution 25 on the agenda. I don't know how to describe this because I deleted the one. I think it's the first one. The last one is the correct one. It should say, if you will bear with me, right around line 40, Director of Recreational Services, Clint Hayflicker, not Director of the Chester E. Peters Recreation Complex. So the one that says that he's Director of Recreational Services is the right one. Look at that one.
The last one.
It's the last one. Anyway, is there a motion to consider Resolution 25? Senator Solomon.
I would consider resolution second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 25. If the author will please come forward.
Okay, perfect. Resolution 25, appeal to campus employers regarding student wages. Whereas, job opportunities for Kansas State University students with campus entities, that is, campus jobs, serve a vital function in the day-to-day operation of KSU and provide experience and time commitment requirements optimally tailored to the student experience. Whereas difficulty to fill such positions is a well-recognized problem across KSU's campus. Whereas despite their convenience, such positions are infamous for hourly compensation rates that are far below those for compatible positions in the region. Whereas alternative explanations for the student staff shortage, such as a broader apathy toward work, are largely unsubstantiated. Whereas KSU and affiliates, such as PowerCap Financial and the KSU Foundation, offer wages more appropriate for the region. And whereas broader economic conditions have accelerated the challenge of keeping pace with the cost of living for low-wage earners. Be it resolved that in the opinion of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association, all campus entities that employ students should be obligated to A, increase their student compensation rates to regionally competitive levels, and B, adopt public plans that outline long-term cost of living increases to base compensation rates. Section 2. To the extent possible, the Student Services Fee Standing Committee should encourage and incentivize the entities under its purview to improve the wages of their student employees. And Section 3.
Upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to the Deans of KSU's academic colleges, Dean of K-State Libraries, Dr. Joe Mochnick, Director of Recreational Services, Clint Hafliger, Director of the KSU Student Union, Corey Williamson, President and CEO of the K-State Alumni Association, Amy Button-Renz, Executive Director of Recruitment and Admissions, Tammy Byland, Associate Vice President for Facilities, Casey Lauer, Chief Information Officer, Dr. Gary Pratt, Director of Housing and Dining Services and Associate Vice President for Student Life, Dr. Derek Jackson, Vice Provost for Student Success, Dr. Jeannie Brown Leonard, Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students, Dr. Thomas Lane, and University President, Dr. Richard H. Linton.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Caucus Leader Kidd.
Yeah, so lines 30, 31, in relation to you stating originally competitive levels, I guess defining that, what does that mean? What does that mean? Like,
That's a great question. I intentionally did not specify a number amount, like we want $15 an hour or something like that, because that's easier to reject. I think it's more reasonable for us in this position to ask for something that is competitive.
Are there any further questions? Senator Bannister.
Yes, was there any consideration of attaching reference material like the job descriptions for PowerCat Financial or the Alumni Association or non-career jobs are part-time?
Not especially, but I think that would be smart, Will.
That's all.
Caucus Leader Kidd.
So my question is, for these directors to review this document, do you have any information on what the average salary is, or average hourly salary is of K-State students on campus? Or?
That is a really good question. Hannah actually shot over to me a table that tells us the percent increases back to 1980. We haven't had one since 2010. And the 2010 raise set the minimum at $725. I really couldn't tell you what the average is, but it hasn't changed much since then.
Are there any further questions? Senator Scheer.
Yeah, do you have any information about what, say, a cafeteria worker makes in Manhattan that you've been using to write this legislation and stuff?
That is another really good question. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
Senator Strout.
Do you know what other universities are making across Kansas, as in the students specifically?
Another good question that I do not know the answer to.
Chair Long.
Question of privilege for somebody not the speaker.
The speaker or the speaker?
The speaker.
Granted.
RJ, Senator Sullivan, do we know how long PowerCat Financial payment will remain at its current level?
I would presume indefinitely.
Because the current rate is based off of donation, right?
I would presume so, yeah.
Okay, so that's so they're just gonna assume it's gonna be for.
Yeah, so the issue is PowerCat Financial right now, there are I think 5 full-time PowerCat Financial peer potential counselors, and that's gonna jump up to 18 or 19 once we train everyone after the first semester. I assume that it's gonna stay the same, just because I feel like Jody Kaus, the director, would have accounted for that. But we could definitely ask Jody about that if we were interested. So,
Chair Phillips.
Yeah, Nick, where did this idea come from, and is this something that you would consider writing an oversight report about?
That was 2 questions.
Blake, I heard, I can't remember who I was talking to, but that person was speaking to someone else who remarked that students are lazy and that's why we're struggling to fill jobs. And that rubbed me the wrong way. The going rate for someone who works in one of the dining centers is something like $8 or $9 an hour.
It's $9.25.
Thank you, Evan. That's silly. That shouldn't happen. So that's why we have this. I've thought for a while about how this integrates with my committee and the work that we do. This even was a topic that one of the senators that was part of the special committee that tested the idea out explored. I think the problem is that it's really hard for us as students to set long-term plans for what student wage increases should look like.
Are there any further questions? Senator Spindler.
Have you considered that, like, for housing and dining specifically, but like just across campus, like if you had to raise the minimum wage, you'd have to raise tuition just to pay off student employees?
I really couldn't speculate as to where increases would have to come from, but certainly the cost pressures are something that I am not ignorant of in my writing of this legislation. That's another reason why I don't specify what I mean when I say competitive rates. I think we know as students, or as student leaders anyway, that people around the university are trying their best, right? Like pockets are stretched pretty thin. So we want to be flexible while still advocating on behalf of student interest.
Yeah, Caucus Leader Kidd.
Thank you. So my other question, looking at the entity directors that you wanted to send this to, was there any consideration over a classification of the entities being a service center versus like budget generator? I think that's an important topic to keep in mind, but like, what was your thought process when you considered, I want to send it to these people specifically?
These people on this list are my targeting of the best places that I can identify the largest concentrations of student employees. There's no classification or distinction between them. I think that getting it here gets it to the most amount of student employees. If you have suggestions for other people that it would be valuable to send it to, I would love to hear that.
Senator Brown.
This isn't really a question. I just wanted to say, as a member of Housing and Dining and working for K-State campus, I think this would be a great opportunity for us to honestly support student involvement within these programs and to get more people to turn out and be a part of our K-State community. So I thank you for writing this.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you for that point of information. Senator Bannister.
Yeah, so I think it was 2 meetings ago I mentioned that students without Pell Grants are eligible to have no taxes on their university wages. But if you make over a certain amount in the year, you can lose that tax exemption and lose out on federal aid the next year. So did you have any conversations with staff about like what that might look like for those students?
Will, that fact is extremely interesting. I have no idea about what you asked.
Okay, I can talk to you after.
Thank you.
Granted.
So also, would you be opposed to maybe not amending this bill, but another bill making a resolution to tie student wages to the rate of inflation in Kansas, or propose that idea to the university?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of sophisticated ways that we can approach what I specify in Section 1B, where we want to see a long-term plan for an increase to student wages, right? It's not that we've always been paying students no money ever, it's that we haven't made any substantial adjustments in a very significant period of time. So I think something like that achieves a solution to the problem that we have now.
Yeah, Caucus Leader Kidd.
Thank you. So when I review this, my mind goes to, well, what do I do about it? And the reason why I bring that up is that with declining enrollments, like budget constraints, I guess the pragmatic view is aside from saying, yes, raise the wages, that can go in a lot of different ways with, like, depending on what the department is. I guess just from a pragmatics point of view, I guess with limited budget options, where would an entity go if they needed like advice or help on like how to actually raise the student wages, if that makes sense of it?
That's a very good question. I don't think the people in this room have an obligation to be devising budget solutions. Our responsibility is to identify where student needs are not being met, where students are being put through conditions that are not acceptable, and to call that out so that the people that do have really robust understandings of how we can solve those financial problems do so.
Okay, folks, I want to add something. Some of these questions that we've had in the past few minutes have gotten a little debate-like, so let's just keep it to information specifically about the resolution. If you want to debate it, wait until it's on the Senate floor or come to the committee that it's going to get referred to. But yeah, Senator Clary-Kiel.
Out of curiosity, when was the last time that student compensation
I can't speak entity to entity or department to department, but the last time we saw a % increase from the budget office was 2010.
Senator Bannister.
I'd like to make a point of correction. I actually think it's all federally sponsored loans that students are eligible for that, not just Pell Grants.
Thank you, Will.
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, you may take your seat.
Federally subsidized.
Thank you for that clarification, Hannah. Welcome, Derek. We're almost done. Yeah, just in time. So unless anyone has any other legislation to consider, which they don't, we'll go ahead and move into our second open period. So do we have any second open period speakers tonight? Senator Coy.
Okay, hello everyone. If you have time from 10 to 2 to stop by the voter registration booth that UPC and SGA are putting on, it would be greatly appreciated since I think it would be absolutely amazing to have some SGA representatives show up and show how important it is to vote since we did get voted into these positions mostly, so.
Are there any questions? Senator Pondillo, or excuse me, Chair Pondillo, my apologies.
Just take away my scholarship. So will it be like a QR code or can we like fill out the paper?
So for voter registration,
Yeah.
it will be a QR code because in Kansas there is actually legislation that says that we can show them where the QR code is, but we cannot scan it, we cannot help them fill it out or anything. So it'll just be a QR code that people can scan with their phone or iPad or however they can do that.
Any further questions? Senator Salmon.
What days is that?
This is on Tuesday, so next Tuesday. Yeah.
These are good questions. Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, you may take your seat. Are there any further second open period speakers? Parliamentarian Atchison.
What's going on, everybody? Yeah, thank you. So I started a new ad hoc committee on food security. If you remember back to, what was that, April, May? Yeah, something like that. We need 3 student senators to serve on that committee. So if you're interested in serving on said committee, please reach out to me or Bentley, and we can get you signed up on that if you have any interest. So thanks.
Thank you, Bryce. Are there any questions, Bryce? Intern Coordinator Lynn.
What's up?
Yeah, I know you're looking for student senators. Are there any like at-large appointments for
There
the ad
are
hoc committee
at-large appointments.
that I could perhaps pass that along to some interns?
Yes.
Okay. Is there like
How many?
Yeah.
2.
Is there? Should I just have them contact you, or is there some kind of thing that you would like people to fill
At this
out?
point in time, you could I will give you my email.
Send them
and-
Bryce's way.
I know your email, Bryce. I didn't find that.
It is batchison@ksu.edu.
That is false.
What is it?
It is BAATCHIS@ksu.edu.
That is.
I retract my previous statement. Are there any further questions?
B.A. Atchison? That's
Yes.
what that is.
Okay, seeing none, you may take your seat.
Thank you.
Are there any further second open period speakers? Speaker Pro Tempore Pineda Gomez.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of something that came out actually earlier this week. It was in your K-State Today. Basically, the headline that was in there was, "My Student Support Program now available for all K-State students." You probably won't be able to see my phone screen if I hold it up. So, huh? That's fine. No, we won't do that. But in any case, if you look up My SSP on your app store, whether you have Google or whatever, like Apple, whatever you have, so K-State has actually partnered with this app, and it provides real, like, lifetime counseling in a variety of languages. And it's not just for, like, crises. So they also have, like, different, like, things you can read up on in there, and you can like text them at any time. You can schedule phone calls and videos. And I think this is especially crucial as we see that It's becoming increasingly more difficult to actually access in-person therapy and mental health counseling sessions. And so I would encourage you to check it out. Definitely let your friends know about it, spread the word about it, because I think it's an amazing resource. And that's My SSP. That's the app name. Also, fill out Senate shoutouts.
Are there any questions for Speaker Pro Tempore Pineda-Gomez? Seeing none, you may take your seat. Are there any further second open period speakers? Derek.
Just want to walk fast, doesn't it? Start going downhill.
Good evening. So I'm going to talk a little bit about tailgating, right? So who was there last week? A few of you? Okay. So working all year, Hunter did a great job of establishing kind of the boundaries for tailgating and how to get a spot and a lot of the logistics of getting students to be in a space that's for students. We sort of under-anticipated a reaction to what is the rules about alcohol and what is the kind of the judgment that's going to be applied to the coming into tailgating, right? So this week, even as late as 5 o'clock, we had a meeting with Ronnie Grice, Chief Grice, Campus Police, as well as Ethan Erickson, our new Vice President for Administration and Finance, right? It's excellent. That's a good news thing. The goal is by tomorrow that we'll have a definition. There's actually a policy for game day alcohol possession, I guess is the word. I was getting ready to say consumption, but possession. And it's not a very well, it's not in a measurement that most students would understand. If you're of legal drinking age on a game day on K-State property adjacent to the stadium, you're allowed to have up to a gallon of alcohol. So do quick math, right? How many cans of beer is in a gallon?
16?
No. Depends on how size the can, right? 12-ounce can, 128 ounces in a gallon, so about 10, right? So where we're getting into this is there has been a pattern over the last 30, 20, 30 years, whatever, that reasonable good judgment has been applied to students and to our university community on game days. And where it came around this last weekend is that reasonable good judgment at 6 a.m. Was not, it didn't happen, right? So the first group through, one of the first groups through was 3 underage persons that had 30 cases of beverage, right? So not very good judgment. Like it didn't come close to the policy. Like 1 gallon per legal drinking age. So our goal here is, and we've been working with our student government this week to figure out what is the definition going to look like. Our goal is by tomorrow that everybody that has a reserved spot will get a communication from us that says, here's what it is. Now, has anybody reserved a spot themselves? Yeah. Did you, at the time of reservation, at the time of picking up your pass on Thursdays over at athletics, did they hand you a policy that articulated any of this?
I got a piece of paper that says where to park and how that works, but nothing's, like, it just was like, be responsible kind of thing. And you have to be
No specifics of this policy of, okay.
Not that I remember.
So that's our rub here. Ronnie Grice is like, our students should know this. I'm like, but they don't. But they should know, but they don't. I mean, so it's either lack of reading or lack of clarity in some communication pattern from our university that gives you the knowledge of what these rules are. Now, whether you choose to follow the rules or not is beyond, that's going to happen next, right? We can deal with that. If you know the rules and you want to live by the rules, I think you have an opportunity to do that. We just have to figure out how to get that out to you. So our goal is by tomorrow, like I said, we'll have a communication out that will outline what is sort of the reasonable good judgment. Because that also states that in the policy. It talks about reasonable judgment. Whose judgment? When you piss off the first guy, the campus police officer that has to deal with 3 significantly underage persons with 30 cases of beer, that just sort of like set the course, right? I mean, it was grumpy and 6 o'clock in the morning, it's dark, and now you're messing up with this. So just know that we're working through this. Be patient, but also be respectful of our process. And as far as a university, my goal, and I think your goals are, is a safe place for our students to tailgate, to have a good experience, to look out for each other. This is a community affair here. And you need to be kind of working into this. So, because the alternative is the hammer, right? And nobody wants the hammer. So anyway, right? No hammer. You saw the hammer on Saturday morning at 6. My phone was blowing up at 7 o'clock on Saturday morning saying people are getting arrested, beer's getting confiscated, and stuff like that. So nobody wants that on a Saturday morning. Right.
Are there any questions? Intern Coordinator Lynn.
Okay, so I don't know if I maybe missed, like, if I'm just not getting it. Is it a gallon of alcohol per person at that spot, like at any given time? Because like those 3 people show up to their spot, but like 15 minutes later,
Right.
5 of their friends come. Like, is that
Legal drinking age would be the first starting point.
right? Okay. Like, if I'm assuming that I am 21
Right.
years old.
If you are 21, the policy states that you may possess up to a gallon of alcohol at the time of this event. And the event is the K-State football game. So if you can follow that guidance,
Yeah.
you should be able to be fine. So you can, a gallon is, it's a little nebulous. That's our issue is you can have a gallon, a fifth of whiskey, right?
But it's 40% ABV.
It's a gallon is what it says. That's the fallacy of our policy. It's not in the quantifiable behavior pattern of our students. Right? I'd much rather have you a gallon of beer than a gallon of whiskey.
Of vodka
Right.
at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right. But, so this is obviously pointing out some issues that we need to manage
Yeah.
differently in the future moving forward. Like I said, all through the last year, it never was identified as an issue. Evidently, it wasn't enough of an issue in the past to be carried forward as an issue to be managed. Right? I mean, at Lot 9, it never seemed to be, well, maybe on occasion, but it was never highlighted as a student issue, at least recently anyway. So now maybe there's lots to put into this, but that's my analysis at the moment.
Any further questions? Senator DePaz.
So let's just say a student that's of legal age gets caught with more than a gallon. What are the consequences?
So you can be cited. So the campus police officer has the ability to cite you for illegal possession, either because it's too much volume or because you're not behaving well with it. I mean, you would want them to say, hey, you've got too much, either take it and go home with it or pour it out till you get to the level of the right volume. That's a reason. That would be my reason. If I was a police officer at that space, I've got some options here. Now, legally, if you're over the rules, you can be cited. And then you can even not necessarily cited as a ticket where you have to go pay a fine, but you can also be held accountable on our student judiciary side.
Go hang out with Kathleen.
So I'm surmising based on a person's judgment of what's within the bounds.
Yeah, Senator Pilchard.
So another scenario, just let's say like someone walks into a
Folks, if we have hypotheticals for Derek, we can deal with those after the meeting, but just out of the interest of everybody's time, can we maybe keep it to questions that we haven't touched on yet?
Okay. Is there anything dealing with like the percentage of alcohol, not necessarily?
Not in the policy. It doesn't spell out any, it doesn't regulate from a cereal malt beverage, which is 3.5 up to 190 proof evergreen.
Okay.
It just says alcohol in the policy.
Senator Johnson.
Yeah, sorry, I know you might not know the answer to this question, but that communication you're referring to, will that look more like a mass communication or maybe case by case when they reserve the spot?
So, yeah, good question. In the future, I'd like it to be part of the sign up and the handing out of the, here's your rules, right? Here's the highlighted about alcohol. That's not going to happen because that's already happened for this week. My goal is by tomorrow that those that have reserved spots would get a communication from the university that says, oh, by the way, pay attention, right? And then I hope our students can spread the word to their community in this. Now, that was at 5:15 when we said this. It's 8:15 now. Things could have changed, but that was our goal at 5:15.
Parliamentarian Atchison.
So I coded in the West Lot, right?
Yes.
Do these laws apply to the West Lot as well?
The theory is yes.
Because I have seen many individuals with more than a gallon of alcohol at one time in the West Lot.
the likelihood of having more people of legal drinking age in the west lot
Well, sure.
is a lot higher than the east lot-ish, further east, right?
But just to be clear, these do apply.
These are the rules for the university.
Okay.
Senator Broughton.
So, who's responsible? Is it specifically the person that is in possession of the gallon, or is it the person that is, reserving the spot?
It's the person that's in possession. I mean, it is your responsibility. I mean, I could reserve the spot, and somebody's standing there or coming along with me or whatever, hanging out. And if they've got more than either they're underage or they've got more than what's allowed, that's going to trip them over. Now, we know that there's a cooler sitting there. Whose cooler is it, right? I don't know. I mean, it may come back to the person that reserved the spot to say, okay, you're in spot 12. This is your possession. But at some level, the police are going to have to make some judgment if they're going to adjudicate this, of you reserved the spot, Derek. Okay, yeah, this is my truck. This is my vehicle. If it's in the back of my truck, it's mine, right? If it's laying on the ground, now you got to judge me. So hopefully I'm trying to present, and we'll be able to get some clarity such that you know as a student what the rules are. Good judgment's going to come into play in this. Responsible behavior is going to come into play in this. If you're underage, you probably shouldn't have it because you can't be cited. There were people cited last week. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 or 40 students over the course of the game were cited. That's pretty normal. That's not atypical in a game like the Missouri game. I mean, it's students that are underage will be cited if they're found.
Okay, awesome, folks. I know that there are a lot of really good questions for Derek, but I think the time for questions has elapsed, unless there's a motion to extend.
I motion to extend.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to extend the
I have
time
to
for
agree to
questions.
a motion to extend.
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any objections to the motion? Is that an objection?
I object.
Okay. Okay, so seeing as there was an objection, we will have to take a hand vote on this. All those in favor of the motion to extend the time for questions, please raise your placards now. All those opposed to the motion to extend time for questions? Okay,
I'll hang
thanks
around.
everybody.
I mean, I won't run off here, so thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Appreciate it. Are there any further second open period speakers this evening? Okay, seeing none, Juan will take it away with Senate shoutouts.
Shout out to Senator Blood. Shout out to Senator Blood for keeping me on my funding toes. Juan, you're cool. Go Chiefs. Watch out, Provost Tabor. Bannister is going to get on your desk and yell. Porter, I hardly knew her. We need more porta potties, Derek. Shout out to the DDs on Saturdays. And that is everything.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And with that, we'll go ahead and do reference of legislation. There was only one piece of legislation this week. That's going to the Senate Executive Committee. I know there were a lot of unanswered questions about that piece of legislation, and a lot of folks had some pretty good ideas about that. So if anyone wants to come out to the Senate Executive Committee, those are Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Please don't pack up until we're through roll call, folks. Those are Tuesdays at 7 p.m. in the Center for Student Involvement Conference Room. So if you want to come have your opinion shared, show up to Senate Exec. And with that, we'll go ahead and take it away with our second roll call.
All right, thanks, Evan. Anderson. Here. Bannister.
Present.
Bellamy. Here. Blood.
Here.
Broughton.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Carey.
Here.
Compton.
Here.
Coy.
Here.
Davidson.
Here.
DePaz.
Here.
Dole.
Here.
Grills. Heatherman.
Here.
Hoffman.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Collery Kiel.
Here.
Cammon.
Here.
Kirshen. Kidd.
Here.
Kermer.
Here.
Labidi.
Here.
Long.
Here.
McFarland.
Here.
McPhee.
Here.
Middahl.
Here.
Murphy.
Here.
Moretti. Navarro.
Here.
Oury.
Here.
Pelton. Phillips.
Here.
Pilchard.
Here.
Bondillo.
Here.
Rogers.
Here.
Saya.
Here.
Salmon.
Here.
Shear.
Here.
Schreier.
Here.
Spindler.
Here.
Stout.
Here.
Stroud.
Here.
Talbert.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
And Wolf.
Here.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Is there a motion to adjourn? Senator Compton.
I move to adjourn until next week, same time, same place. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn until the same time, same place next week. Unless there are any objections, we will stand adjourned at 8:19 p.m. Thanks, everybody.
It's also like,
Jake, you make me proud to be my chair.
I don't know if
Yeah, Jacob said and then this started, so
if it says literally the $10 minimum wage is what is acceptable.
James Brown.
Then I'd be okay with it, but it doesn't do that. I wish it would take us more. I did say.